There is a presence, an undeniable, all-consuming presence, that when it enters the room, everything changes. Your burdens become weightless, your fears dissolve, and your heart is set on fire with a love so pure, so divine, that you never want to leave that place again. Some have tasted it for a moment, felt a glimpse of it in a service, in a song, in a whispered prayer, but few have learned to live in it. Oh, how many long for this presence but feel it slipping away. They cry out, "Lord, where are you? Why do I not feel you as I once did?" And today I stand before you with the answer, with the one secret that has been hidden in plain sight. The presence of God is not a fleeting moment, not an emotional experience, not something we visit once a week in a church service. No, it is a life, a way of being, a dwelling place. And I tell you, the secret to abiding in His presence is simpler than you could ever imagine. So simple that many miss it. Beloved, listen to me. There is a reason the enemy fights you so hard, a reason why distractions come, why doubt creeps in, why you feel dry even though you pray. The enemy knows that if you ever truly enter and remain in God's presence, you will be unstoppable. You will walk in power, you will speak, and things will change. You will carry an anointing that no force in hell can withstand. So today I invite you to listen closely. Do not miss a single word. What I am about to share will not only change your life, it will change your eternity. The secret to living in God's presence is waiting for you. And before this message ends, you will know it. Stay with me. Stay in expectation, because heaven is about to touch earth. True spiritual transformation begins when we learn to dwell in the presence of God, not just visit it occasionally. Too many believers today live in cycles of highs and lows, moments of deep spiritual connection followed by seasons of dryness. They cry out in desperation, longing to feel God's presence once again, only to experience fleeting glimpses that vanish like the morning mist. This is not what God intended. His presence was never meant to be a rare encounter, but a constant reality. There is a place in God where His presence is not something you seek occasionally, but something you live in daily. The difference between those who live in His presence and those who merely visit it lies in understanding that intimacy with God is not a moment, but a lifestyle. Many think of the presence of God as an emotional experience, a rush of joy or peace that comes during worship or prayer. But living in God's presence goes beyond feelings. It is deeper than emotion and more powerful than any temporary sensation. God's presence is not dictated by what we feel, but by the position of our hearts. There are those who have learned this secret, who walk in an unshakable peace, who radiate a divine authority, whose very words carry the power of heaven. They have discovered what so many miss, that the presence of God is not reserved for a special few, but is available to all who desire it. The reason so many struggle to maintain that connection is because they treat God's presence as a place to visit, rather than a home to abide in. The Lord does not want weekend visits. He does not want to be an occasional guest in your life. He is calling His people to dwell, to remain, to abide in Him. Jesus said, "Abide in me, and I in you." The invitation has always been there. The question is, will we accept it? Dwelling in His presence requires a shift, a breaking away from the distractions and busyness that so easily pull us away. Many desire to walk in God's presence but refuse to slow down, to quiet their hearts, to turn their full attention to Him. The world competes for your focus, filling your mind with endless noise, keeping you so preoccupied that you miss the very thing your soul longs for. The presence of God is found in stillness, in surrender, in the simple yet powerful act of turning your heart toward Him completely. There is a reason the enemy works so hard to keep you distracted. He knows that if you ever enter into the fullness of God's presence, you will never be the same. He knows that those who live in the presence of God walk in power, in authority, in victory. He does everything he can to keep believers in a state of restlessness, keeping them busy with worries, doubts, and endless pursuits that lead nowhere. But today you have a choice. You can decide to break free from that cycle. You can decide to make the presence of God your dwelling place, your refuge, your home. Living in God's presence requires a conscious decision. It is not automatic. You do not drift into His presence by accident. It is a choice, a daily surrender, a moment-by-moment awareness of His nearness. It means learning to recognize Him in the ordinary, to see His hand in every situation, to acknowledge Him in all things. The more you acknowledge Him, the more real He becomes to you. And as you abide in His presence, transformation begins. Fear loses its grip. Anxiety fades. The weight of life's burdens is lifted. You begin to live from a place of rest, of assurance, of supernatural strength. This is the life God intended for you. Not one of spiritual highs and lows, but one of steady, unbroken fellowship with Him. There is no formula to entering God's presence. It is not about performing religious rituals or striving to be worthy. The presence of God is accessed through surrender. It is about letting go of your own efforts, your own striving, and simply yielding to Him. The Holy Spirit is already within you. His presence is already there. The only thing left is for you to recognize it, to acknowledge it, to make room for Him in your life. When you do, you will discover what so many have missed. You will experience the joy, the peace, the power that comes from living in God's presence, not as a visitor, but as a dweller. Living in God's presence isn't about emotions, but about deep, unwavering faith that transcends circumstances. Too often, people mistake God's presence for a feeling. They believe that if they feel joy, peace, or excitement during worship or prayer, then God is near. But when those feelings fade, they begin to doubt. They wonder if something is wrong, if they have lost their connection with God. This is one of the greatest deceptions the enemy uses to weaken believers, making them think that the presence of God is measured by what they feel rather than what they believe. Faith, not feeling, is the foundation of a life lived in God's presence. Those who rely on emotions will be unstable, constantly questioning where they stand with God. But those who stand on faith, who trust in His word above all else, will remain unshaken, no matter what comes. God never said that His presence would always feel the same. He never promised that we would always experience overwhelming emotions when we pray. But He did promise that He would never leave us nor forsake us. His presence is constant, unchanging, not dependent on our shifting emotions. Feelings come and go. One moment you may be on fire with passion for God, and the next you may feel nothing. But does that mean He has left? Absolutely not. His presence is not dictated by our moods or circumstances. It is based on His promise, His faithfulness, His unchanging nature. This is why faith is the key. When you learn to walk by faith and not by sight, you will no longer be controlled by how you feel. You will know that God is with you even when you cannot sense Him. Many people struggle in their walk with God because they are waiting for a feeling. They believe that unless they experience something dramatic, God is not near. They chase after emotional highs, moving from one event, one conference, one powerful moment to the next, always looking for the next spiritual rush. But this is not how God intended us to live. The presence of God is not a wave that comes and goes. It is a steady river that flows within us. Those who build their faith on feelings will always be searching, always doubting, always wondering where God is. But those who trust in His word, who believe in His presence, even when they feel nothing, will walk in a depth of relationship with Him that is unshakable. Faith is what pleases God. The Bible says that without faith it is impossible to please Him. Why? Because faith is trust. Faith says, God, I believe You are with me even when I don't feel anything. Faith says, I trust You even when everything around me looks dark. Faith is what allows us to walk in God's presence, not just in moments of excitement, but in every season of life. Some of the greatest encounters with God do not come with loud music or overwhelming emotion. They come in the quiet, in the stillness, in the moments when all you have is faith. And it is in those moments that faith grows the strongest. The enemy will always try to attack your faith. He will whisper lies, telling you that because you don't feel God, He must not be there. He will try to convince you that your prayers aren't working, that your worship is empty, that your connection with God has been broken. But these are lies. God is closer than your breath. His presence is not something you earn through emotion. It is something you receive by faith. The enemy wants you to doubt, to become discouraged, to stop seeking God because you don't feel anything. But the truth is, faith keeps going even when feelings fade. Faith stands firm even when emotions waver. Faith holds on to God's promise, knowing that He is faithful even when we don't understand. Living in God's presence requires a shift from emotional dependence to faith dependence. It means choosing to believe His word above what you feel. It means worshiping even when you don't feel like it, praying even when it seems dry, trusting even when you don't see results. This is what separates those who merely visit God's presence from those who truly dwell in it. The ones who dwell are not those who chase after emotional experiences, but those who have built their foundation on faith. And when faith becomes your anchor, you will discover a new depth in your relationship with God. a peace that cannot be shaken, and a presence that never leaves. The presence of God is not something you strive to achieve, it is something you surrender to. So many believers struggle, thinking they have to work harder, pray longer, or reach some spiritual milestone before they can truly experience God. They live under the weight of their own efforts, constantly striving, constantly chasing, always feeling as if they are falling short. But the presence of God is not earned through effort. It is received through surrender. It is not about doing more, but about yielding more. The more you surrender, the more of His presence you experience. The more you let go of yourself, the more room you make for Him to move. God is not looking for your performance. He is not impressed by how many religious activities you complete or how many hours you spend trying to prove your devotion. What He desires is your heart. He desires a heart that is fully yielded, completely surrendered, willing to trust Him without reservation. Many people think they have to reach a certain level of holiness before they can truly experience God's presence. But this is a lie. The presence of God is not reserved for the perfect. It is given to those who are willing to lay themselves down at His feet. The moment you stop trying to earn His presence and simply surrender, you will realize that He was there all along. Surrender is the key that unlocks the door to deeper intimacy with God. It is not about striving to be worthy, but about recognizing that you are already loved. Too many people hesitate to enter into God's presence because they feel unworthy. They look at their past mistakes, their failures, their struggles, and they convince themselves that God is distant because they do not deserve to be close to Him. But the truth is, no one deserves His presence, yet He freely gives it. He is not waiting for you to fix yourself before you come to Him. He is asking you to come as you are and surrender everything to Him. When you surrender, something powerful happens. The burdens you have been carrying begin to lift. The struggles you have been fighting lose their grip. The fears, the anxieties, the doubts, all begin to fade in the presence of a God who is greater than them all. Surrender is not weakness. It is the greatest strength. It is the moment you stop trying to control everything and trust that God's way is better than yours. It is the moment you choose to let go of your plans and say, God, have your way in my life. When you live in surrender, you begin to experience the fullness of His presence, because there is no longer anything blocking Him from moving in your life. Many believers have not truly experienced God's presence because they are still holding on to something. They have one foot in the world and one foot in God's kingdom. They want His presence, but they are unwilling to let go of the things that compete for their attention. God does not force His way in. He moves where He is given space. If your heart is crowded with distractions, worries, and selfish desires, there will be no room for Him. But when you surrender, when you say, God, I want you more than anything else, that is when His presence floods your life in ways you never imagined. Surrender is not a one-time event. It is a daily decision. It is waking up every morning and choosing to lay down your own will, your own desires, and say, God, lead me. It is choosing to trust Him when circumstances make no sense. It is choosing to worship even when life is difficult. It is choosing to believe His promises even when you don't see the evidence yet. This is the kind of surrender that invites His presence to dwell with you continuously. Those who live in surrender are not shaken by trials because they know their lives are in God's hands. They do not live in fear because they trust that He is in control. There is nothing more powerful than a surrendered life. It is the life that experiences miracles, the life that walks in supernatural peace, the life that radiates God's presence everywhere it goes. This is what He desires for you, not a life of striving, of struggling to earn His presence, but a life of surrender, where His presence is your dwelling place. When you stop trying to force your way into God's presence and simply yield to Him, you will find that His presence has been there all along, waiting for you to let go and receive Him fully. God's presence is not a place you visit, it is a place you dwell. Many people live their lives moving in and out of God's presence, treating it like a special experience rather than a constant reality. They feel close to God when they are in a church service, when worship music is playing, or when they have a powerful moment of prayer. But once the moment passes, once life becomes busy again, they drift back into the routines of daily life, leaving God's presence behind as if it was something separate from their everyday existence. But this was never God's intention. His presence was never meant to be something you visit occasionally. It is meant to be the very atmosphere you live in, the foundation of your life, the source of your strength in every moment. The mistake so many believers make is thinking that God's presence is tied to a location, an experience, or a feeling. They think that in order to be close to him, they have to be in a certain setting or engage in certain spiritual activities. While it is true that worship, prayer, and gathering with other believers can help create an awareness of his presence itself is not limited to those moments. He is just as present in the quiet moments of your day as he is in the most powerful worship service. He is just as near when you are working, resting, or going through the ordinary routines of life as he is when you are on your knees in prayer. The key is not to seek moments of his presence, but to live in a state of continual awareness of him. To dwell in God's presence means to carry an ongoing consciousness of him, to live in a way that acknowledges that he is always near. It means learning to shift your mindset from seeing him as someone you visit to seeing him as someone you abide in. Jesus said, "Abide in me and I in you." This is not a temporary invitation. It is a permanent reality for those who choose to live in him. Abiding means remaining, staying connected, refusing to separate yourself from his presence, even in the mundane aspects of life. It means that you do not just acknowledge God in moments of need, but that you walk with him in every step, in every decision, in every thought. Many people struggle with this because they are distracted. Their minds are filled with worries, responsibilities, and the endless noise of the world. They allow life's demands to pull them away from the awareness of God's presence. But dwelling in his presence requires an intentional shift. It requires setting your heart and mind on him daily, choosing to acknowledge him in all things, and refusing to let the distractions of life drown out the reality of his nearness. This does not mean withdrawing from life's responsibilities, but it means learning to invite God into them. It means realizing that his presence is with you as you work, as you drive, as you interact with others. It means making him a part of every moment, not just the moments that feel spiritual. The secret to living in God's presence is not striving to feel him more, but training yourself to recognize that he is already there. He does not come and go based on how spiritual you feel in a given moment. He is constant, unchanging, always present. The difference is not in whether he is near, but in whether you are aware. When you train your heart to remain aware of his presence, you will begin to experience him in ways you never have before. Suddenly, prayer is not just something you do at set times. It becomes a continuous conversation. Worship is not just an act. It becomes a lifestyle. Peace is not just a momentary feeling. It becomes the atmosphere in which you live. Those who dwell in God's presence walk differently. They are not shaken by fear because they know they are never alone. They do not live in anxiety because they trust that he is guiding them. They do not feel empty because they are constantly filled by him. This is the life God desires for you, a life where his presence is not something you visit, but something you carry. It is not something you chase after, but something you live in. When you learn to dwell in his presence, you will find that everything changes, not because he was ever far away, but because you finally chose to remain where he has always been. The presence of God is not meant to be a mystery. It is meant to be your reality. So many people live their lives wondering if they will ever truly experience him. They look at others who seem to walk in deep intimacy with God and think, that could never be me. They convince themselves that encountering God's presence is for a select few. Pastors, spiritual leaders, or those who have reached some higher level of holiness. But that is not the truth. The presence of God is not reserved for a few. It is available to all who seek him with a sincere heart. He is not distant, nor is he hiding from you. The only thing keeping you from experiencing his presence is your own willingness to open your heart fully to him. God has always desired to be near his people. From the very beginning, his longing has been to dwell among those who love him. When Adam and Eve walked in the garden, they lived in perfect fellowship with God. They did not have to search for his presence, they lived in it. But sin entered the world and mankind became separated from God. From that moment on, humanity has longed to return to that place of closeness with him. And that is why Jesus came, not just to forgive sin, but to restore what was lost, to bring us back into communion with God, to make it possible for us to once again dwell in his presence. When Jesus died and the veil in the temple was torn, it was not just a symbolic act. It was a divine invitation. God was saying, "Come near. There is no more separation. My presence is open to you." Yet, despite this incredible gift, many still live as if they are separated from God. They believe lies that tell them they are unworthy, that they must do more, that they must achieve something before they can enter his presence. But the presence of God is not something you earn. It is something you receive. It is not something you find by striving harder. It is something you experience by believing and surrendering. God is already near. He is waiting for you to acknowledge Him, to trust that He is closer than you think. To live in the reality of God's presence, you must first remove the barriers in your mind that tell you He is far away. Stop thinking of Him as a distant God who must be convinced to draw near. He is not distant. He is near. But your awareness of His presence is what changes your experience. If you live unaware, you will feel as if He is absent. But if you choose to open your eyes, to recognize that He is with you, to speak to Him, to invite Him into every moment, then you will begin to experience His presence in a way that is undeniable. Living in His presence is not about feeling something extraordinary all the time. It is not about waiting for a supernatural moment to prove that He is with you. It is about faith. Faith is believing that God is present even when your emotions do not confirm it. Faith is knowing that He is near even when life feels ordinary. And when you live by faith, when you choose to trust that His presence is your reality, you begin to see the evidence of it in ways you never expected. You begin to recognize His voice more clearly. You begin to feel His peace more deeply. You begin to notice how He moves in the small details of your life. Many people spend their lives searching for an encounter with God, not realizing that He is already with them. They wait for a spectacular moment, thinking that is what it takes to truly know Him. But God does not want you to seek just a moment with Him. He wants you to live in constant communion with Him. He wants to walk with you, talk with you, guide you, fill you, and transform you. He wants to be more than just a part of your life. He wants to be your life. When you finally realize that His presence is not a mystery, but a reality, everything changes. You stop striving. You stop searching. You simply begin to live in the awareness that He is with you. And when you live in that awareness, you will find that the presence of God is not something to be found. It is something to be lived in every moment of every day. The secret to living in God's presence is surrender. It is not about trying harder, doing more, or reaching a higher level of spirituality. It is about letting go. So many people struggle to experience God because they are holding on to their own ways, their own plans, their own strength. They want His presence, but they also want control. They seek Him, but they are not willing to release the things that keep them from fully walking with Him. But the presence of God is not something you add to your life. It is something you surrender to. It is not something you grasp for. It is something you yield to. The more you try to take control, the more you will feel distant from Him. But the moment you surrender, truly surrender, you will find that He has been there all along, waiting for you to release everything into His hands. Surrender is not just about letting go of sin. It is about letting go of self. It is about laying down your own understanding, your own desires, your own need to figure everything out. It is about trusting that God is enough. Many people think that surrender means giving up everything they love, that it means losing themselves. But surrender is not about loss. It is about gain. It is about stepping into the fullness of God's presence, where everything you truly need is found. It is about realizing that when you let go of your own way, you make room for His way, a way that is far greater than anything you could plan for yourself. Living in surrender means choosing God above all else. It means saying, Lord, I trust You even when I do not understand. I choose You even when my flesh wants something else. I follow You even when it costs me everything. This is where true intimacy with God is found, not in chasing after emotional experiences, not in trying to manufacture spiritual moments, but in simply yielding daily to His presence. When you surrender, you are no longer trying to make something happen. You are resting in what already is. You are no longer striving to feel close to God. You are walking in the truth that He is already with you. The reason so many people struggle to experience God's presence is that they have not fully surrendered. They come to Him with conditions. They seek Him, but only if it does not disrupt their plans. They want His presence, but they also want to hold on to the things that keep them bound. But God's presence is not something you can experience halfway. You cannot walk in the fullness of His presence while still clinging to the things that separate you from Him. You must let go. Let go of the need to control. Let go of the fear that keeps you from trusting Him completely. Let go of the distractions that pull your heart in different directions. And when you do, you will find that His presence is not far away. It is right where it has always been, waiting for you to step fully into it. Surrender is not a one-time decision. It is a daily choice. It is waking up every morning and saying, Lord, I give you this day. I give you my thoughts, my actions, my desires. Lead me, fill me, have your way in me. It is learning to live with open hands, knowing that nothing in this world is more valuable than His presence. It is choosing to trust Him in every situation, even when things do not go as planned. It is believing that He is good even when life feels uncertain. And as you walk in surrender, you will begin to experience a peace that cannot be explained, a joy that is not dependent on circumstances, a closeness with God that is unshakable. When you live in surrender, His presence becomes the very foundation of your life. You no longer feel the need to chase after temporary things because you have found the only thing that truly satisfies. You no longer feel anxious about the future because you know that He is in control. You no longer feel distant from God because you are abiding in Him. And this is what He desires for you, not just moments of His presence, but a life lived in constant communion with Him. A life where you do not just visit His presence, but you dwell in it. A life where He is not just part of your journey, but He is your everything. This is the secret. This is the invitation. Let go and step into the fullness of His presence. The greatest hindrance to living in God's presence is not the world around you, nor is it the circumstances you face. It is the state of your heart. Many people long to experience God but remain unaware that their own hearts have become barriers to His presence. The heart is where true communion with God begins, and it is also where separation can take root. If your heart is divided, distracted, or burdened with things that pull you away from Him, you will struggle to experience the fullness of His presence. God does not distance Himself from His children, but when the heart is not fully yielded, it becomes difficult to recognize His nearness. A heart that is consumed by worry, fear, or doubt is a heart that struggles to rest in God's presence. Fear creates distance, not because God leaves, but because fear blinds you from seeing that He is near. Doubt makes you question whether He is truly with you, causing you to feel alone even though He has never left. Worry keeps your mind so preoccupied with problems that you fail to recognize the peace that comes from abiding in Him. To live in God's presence, you must learn to guard your heart. You must recognize the things that try to steal your awareness of Him and refuse to let them take hold. The presence of God is not something that comes and goes based on feelings. It is something you must intentionally cultivate by keeping your heart aligned with Him. This means choosing to trust even when circumstances make it difficult. It means fixing your thoughts on His truth